Alright, hey guys, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Today we're going to be doing another balance suggestion video. We just got a lot of balance changes, and most of them were in a positive direction. However, after experiencing them, I think they fell a bit short. I applaud the devs for making consistent balance changes that didn't break the game, but I think they could have gone a bit further on many changes to renew interest in the game. I'll be looking at a short list of more urgent balance changes in this video. The list focuses on the units that are dominating the meta right now, and most of the units were addressed in the last balance patch, but they're still pretty strong. This means we should look at changing these units in a way that is going to disrupt their dominance without completely ruining their viability in play. I'd like to see other units reworked as well to increase deck variety, but asking for too many changes could be problematic if they don't do them all. So starting off, let's look at Liang. Liang is arguably the most meta-defining unit in the game, and it's because he increases your chance of winning the first missile by such a significant amount, particularly on 3-pad maps where in the first missile, you only have 3 fighting units to work with to take those pads. So if they're all tied up on 2 pads, if you have that boom, Liang drone coming down, taking the pad, your chances of winning go up that much more. And it holds it for 26 seconds on top of that. So once you've won the first missile, you have initiative in the game to do whatever you want. Any deck works because of this, so this makes it so he fits into almost every single deck. So there are a few changes I will propose here to kind of bring him more in line and without destroying his value later on in the game. The first thing I would do here is I would increase the initial first use cooldown of Liang drone from 30 seconds to 65 seconds. And this is going to make it so the Liang drone is not going to come down on the first missile. And this is very important, particularly on 3-pad maps, because you only have 3 fighting units to work with on the first missile generally. And as the game progresses, your unit cooldown build time will go down, so you can build more units and effectively contest more pads with those more units. So that extra tempo swing that the healing drone has is going to matter a little bit less later on in the game, because you'll have more flexibility to deal with it after about a minute. It's kind of like Seth Drill Pod, which can only be made after 56 seconds. This is why what we're modeling it off of. We want the healing drone to not really affect the first missile as much because it's just too powerful then. The next thing I would do is I would lower the duration from 26 to 15 seconds. And this is because some people are using it exclusively in games just to steal pads. They're not even using it to heal once. And this is a problem, particularly where the pads are spread out and it's harder to get to certain pads. So you can't afford to send a counter to kill a Liang drone when there's a more pressing battle going on in the middle. So by lowering its duration to 15 seconds, it's still going to get the healing value that it's getting currently, but it's not going to tie up a pad for so long that the game drags out forever, and be at no population cost to boot, so someone gets an extra unit just to do that. The final change I would make is I would increase the cost from 50 to 60, and this is going to make it so it's harder to snowball economy by using the Liang drone indiscriminately. People are just spamming it out in some decks and getting a lot of value just healing their units and never having to rebuild other ones. So by increasing its cost a little bit more, it's going to slow that down and deter it in a lot of situations where you would otherwise do it, because it might actually be more efficient to just make a new unit instead of just heal one that's taken 25% damage to full and then incidentally 2 others. I think all 3 of these things are important to nerf at once because it's just such a versatile power that it can heal, it can steal, it creates population without impacting your ability to make other units, and it can even block units. So you need to make it a more situational thing that doesn't fit into every single deck. If all 3 of these aren't possible, then the next best thing would be to just increase its price to 70. But I think for the good of the game, all 3 of these would be the best change. So Mammoth got a nerf recently, and it comes out 3.5 seconds later, but this isn't really the problem. The problem is that there's not really a good avenue of counterplay against it once it's out. So you could obviously increase the price of Mammoth to 8,000 and make it completely unplayable. It would never see play, but this isn't the issue. We're not trying to make it unplayable. We're trying to make it so once it's out on the field, there are some bad matchups, or there's something you can do to stop it from completely winning the game outright. So I think the easiest way to do this is to just lower its movement speed back down to where it was. So from slow 3.95 back down to slowest 3. And this was when it became kind of crazy and everyone started using it. And basically what this is going to do is, first, it's going to make it so you can retreat your infantry away from the Mammoth and save them so they can do something more productive. Some infantry may even be able to kite it again. Zone troopers, grenadiers particularly, maybe marauders. It's going to make it easier to even block for these units with like dogs or wheels while they're fighting the mammoth. And on top of all of this, it's going to make it so you can put vehicles in the way of the mammoth, so it has a harder time getting down the field and affecting the matchup. So you have a more defined way of playing against the mammoth before it just completely takes over the match. Because once it's done its damage, once it's taken over the match, it's very, very difficult to come back unless you're running one of those hard counters like Titan against it. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to kind of force people to run Jackson over Liang, and Jackson's going to allow it to be more consistent at chasing down infantry and engaging vehicles. But what Liang does early on in the game is it allows the Mammoth player to contest and stall the missile, so the game will drag on generally and allow the Mammoth to come out. So this will allow the games to end on time more often than not. Orko Bomber, very difficult unit to balance. The nature of the unit is it kills everything on the ground, so the last balance patch was a step in the right direction, but not quite enough. I think it should stay. It's a great change. The increased reload time is the first step that's needed, but typically people will just spam this unit, send it over the pads right before the missile fires, knowing their opponent only has ground units, knowing that they won't be able to build any counters because they're pop capped on those ground units, and they have area denial for 8 seconds because those bombs are just falling, and either they're killing all the units that are on the pad or the units are forced to go away until the 8 seconds are over, and then the missile is fired by that point. So to fix this behavior, I think the bombs should fire faster. Instead of taking 8 seconds to drop all the bombs should drop in 3 or 4 seconds. What this is going to do is it's going to allow people to prematurely trigger the bombs to the scout unit if the Orko Bomber is coming. So hopefully by the time the Orko Bomber arrives, it'll be out of bombs and it won't be able to just lock down that pad. It will also allow people to pull their units off the pad, and if the Orko Bomber doesn't have perfect timing, then you can send the units back onto the pad once the Orko Bomber is done bombing and maybe regain control of the missile. So a second problem is going to occur here where it's just going to have insane burst damage now that it's firing faster. It's firing in half the time, so 4,800 damage to vehicles in 4 seconds and over 1,600 damage to infantry in 4 seconds. I think the infantry damage is fine. You might lower it a little bit just to maybe give your infantry a little bit of breathing room, but probably inevitable that it kills them. Vehicles, on the other hand, tankier vehicles should probably live through it. It's a flying unit, and it's a faster unit that's doing this, and it's only 110 cost, so for it to counter every unit in the game is a little bit crazy. So I think now that it's attacking faster, it's an appropriate time to lower its damage, lower that burst damage a bit. So vehicle damage from 800 to 600 seems reasonable to me. Units that are about as tanky as a Sandstorm, APC, Tick Tank, or what have you could live. And then you could lower the infantry damage down to 200 from 270. This just makes it so if the units are on the outside ring, especially like missile troops, they're gonna take a little bit longer to kill, and maybe you could send them in and get a little bit of chip damage on that Orko Bomber if possible. So these changes are actually synergistic, and if you only do one, it actually could end up buffing the unit. Increasing the rate of fire, like I said, is going to make the unit more bursty, and for that reason, people are going to be running Jackson with Orko Bomber almost certainly instead of Liang. It's going to mean Orko Bomber decks are going to have a weaker first missile, but it's also going to mean that Orko Bombers are going to have a stronger potential to clear specific units. So I think it's very important to do both changes. So Razorback's almost in the perfect place now. It probably needs just a little bit of a nudge to get there. Nerfing it too much is going to make it unplayable, so lowering its damage, lowering its health. Too many units would be able to kill it effectively. It wouldn't do its job. So I propose just raising its price by 10 to 70, and that combined with the Liang price increase, it's going to make it so economies aren't snowballing out of control and people aren't cheating out Tech or Orko Bomber on one harvester. Fanatics have always been a really strong unit, but they were displaced from the meta temporarily by Razorback because it moves so quickly and you just couldn't catch it. But now that the Razorback moves a little bit slower, you really see why the Fanatics are so strong, and that's because they essentially replace or have really good synergy with the Oksana Commander ability. They provide 3 boosts for the price of 1, And they also do good infantry damage, and they hold pads, so they fulfill the infantry role slot in most decks at great value. The biggest issue here is that Fanatics give a movement speed boost that allows you to get from point A to point B without taking return fire, and it allows you to dictate the pace of the matchup. So you get to decide when you engage, and you get to decide when you retreat. And the easiest solution is to just remove the movement speed component of the Fanatic boost and leave the attack speed. And this is going to make it so both players kind of have equal footing, and they can make a decision, well, this is an unfavorable trade, so I'm just going to pull out, or I have to commit now because it's too late. Or it's just going to make it more fair so that the player with the movement speed isn't in complete control of the matchup. Alright, so this next change is really pedantic, but basically, it's to fix a breakpoint issue between bike versus bikes. So bikes at a -1 level disadvantage take 3 missiles to kill bikes that have that 1 extra level, whereas those bikes with the extra level only take 2 missiles. So to fix this, you're going to raise the HP of bikes to 458 per model from 435, and then you're going to lower the vehicle damage to 208. And then this causes another problem for pit bulls, missiles, and lasers. So in order to fix laser squad, missile troopers, and pit bull, you would increase their vehicle damage to 252 each. And then that would fix a breakpoint for pit bulls versus bikes. It would fix a breakpoint for bikes versus bikes, and then it would just keep all those units consistent in dealing with it, because they're the only units that do 250 vehicle damage. I think prioritizing the changes that have been outlined here is the way to go, and not overextending with more changes. Even though, I'd like to see a lot of different changes to a lot of different units, these are the most meta-defining ones. So if we could get all of these, that would be outstanding. But Liang is definitely the most important unit that needs to be nerfed, because he's enabling a lot of these strategies that we're seeing. So by nerfing Liang, you're going to see a drop in pad contesting and game stalling, and these strategies where it feels like you just can't win against someone who's playing tech, because it gets insane value from the healing. People accrue massive Tiberium advantages, and then they can build that more expensive tech. So beyond that, though, there is one unit I believe that no matter what changes you make to other units, he will see limited to no play, and that's because he doesn't really excel at anything. And that unit is Kane. So Kane, iconic commander, doesn't excel at killing tech. He's not very good at it. He's terrible against infantry. He's terrible against squads. He just takes too long to kill them. And he's not even that good against tanks. Actually, tanks in mass will beat him. What he is good against are stealth tanks, chuggy, pit bulls, slingshot, light vehicles. He's very good against, but he's very bad against squads and the heavier units. So the change I'm proposing here is to make him better against tech, to kind of open up a new play style and make him more impactful. So by increasing his vehicle damage from 2,000 to 3,500, what you'll do is you'll make him so he'll two-shot most of the heavier tech, and he will one-shot most of the lighter tech. One of the biggest issues is people can just drive away from the obelisk when it's placed, so it gets very limited value. But by increasing the damage, you're effectively increasing the pressure that the obelisk has. So people have to make a decision at that moment. They have to either decide to engage it or completely disengage and cede the missile. And I think that's the behavior you're kind of looking to capture with that power. It would also be very useful if Kane's tower placement range would be increased by 1. This would make obelisks more relevant on maps like Center Rally, the Frozen Road, or the Bullseye, because it would cover more objectives. It's frustrating not to be able to place it in a relevant spot. The final change I want to bring up here is to increase the base health by 5,000. What this is really going to serve to do is effectively increase the base health by 2,500, not 5,000. Because generally when someone does a base rush, they've won the first missile or they've won the second missile, and now they're all inning your base. And it creates a ton of pressure that forces the other player to react. And it also pulls all of the units away from the pads and the objectives. So base rushing is a very powerful tactic that it forces a reaction from your opponent. So I think making it a little bit more difficult to pull it off, making it so you have to do it twice in a game instead of just once, because it's just that powerful, is going to be the best way to kind of make it a more balanced strategy overall and make it feel less unfair to play against. Base rushes are just a little bit too successful right now. If you're able to pull off even one, it effectively makes it so it's impossible to defend both your base and take the missile. So this is going to give players a little bit more flexibility. It kind of just circumvents the main aspect of the game, which is making effective trades and doing good matchups. The goal of this change is to give players a little bit more leeway so they can decide, okay, I'm willing to lose a little bit of base health here so I can secure a missile and not having to commit all of their resources to defend it. So we're not looking to achieve perfect balance here, but we are kind of looking to increase windows of counterplay and to make it so it feels like there's something you can always do to play better in the game. So hopefully these changes are a step in the right direction. Go ahead and let us know what you think down below, and if there are any changes you want to see, go ahead and let us know as well. Hope you liked the video. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.